We thought we'd start with a little icebreaker here and just have each of our panelists tell us briefly how they broke into the business. I know from their biographies they've got very different stories. So Cody, you want to start?
Sure. It was my lifelong interest, even starting when I was about 6, is photography. So I was pretty adept at a camera by the time I got my first Super 8 camera when I was 9. And then I saw George Lucas's movie THX 1138, and when it first came out, and that inspired me to get into visual effects because it had quite a few stunning scenes, and I just was attracted to the film industry. So I got a film degree, and then shortly after that, just jumped on the first set I could get on. First working through commercials, and then getting into feature film production. But right out of college, I got right on a feature film set, and I started just learning everything I could about making movies. Lighting, gripping, camera work. I learned the sound. I learned a lot of different techniques, film techniques, from a lot of different director photographies, a lot of different departments, and I finally gravitated toward visual effects and physical effects in film. And then from there, after a period of about 10 years, got into doing the effects, same effects, same lighting, same film techniques on the computer. And that's where I've been ever since.
Excellent. How about you, Ryan?
Well, thank you, everyone. Before I forget, and thank you to the Center for hosting this event. It's great to, for me, I came down from San Francisco, so it's a nice little trip for me to come down and meet some of you guys. My entry into film and visual effects was a little bit unconventional in that I got very lucky when I was in high school, but there was also a lot of hard work involved, and I discovered a little program back in the early 90s called 3D Studio, and worked very hard and fell in love with computer graphics, and stayed at school until the alarms went on, and got kicked out of there eventually. I made really good friends with the drafting teacher, and was able to borrow the computers over the summer and practice on that stuff. And a friend of mine and I started creating little videos and playing them at school assemblies for all of the students, and starting to kind of create our own short films and our short animations. And that worked its way into a job at Microsoft when we were, I believe, sophomores in high school. And we worked there for a few years, and then all of the luck showed up one day when George Lucas was doing a documentary on school to career, and wanted to find students throughout the country that were doing jobs while they were still in school. And they happened to find us and highlighted us in a documentary called Learn and Live. And that documentary went across George's desk, and he ended up inviting us down to Skywalker Ranch. And once we figured out how to talk again, after that experience, we didn't let up. We just kept bugging them to give us a job, and we ended up getting hired just days after our high school graduation at Skywalker Ranch, and worked on Star Wars Episode 1 at the age of 18. After that film came out, I moved over to the orphanage and became employee number 1 with a couple of other guys. The partners that founded the company have been there for 9 years.
Okay, great. Erica?
Basically, I always knew that I wanted to be in film, and ultimately went to college and decided to major in history. Why, I don't know, instead of film. But I went to UCLA and worked on a lot of my friends' films while I majored in history. And ultimately, when I graduated, I basically knew that I had to do whatever it took to just get a break. And there was a job posting at a talent agency, a temp job, and I thought, it's a way in. So I went and interviewed. They hired me, and from there, I just went from one job to the next, and ultimately, I worked for Jim Henson while he was still alive in the Muppets, and which was an amazing experience to have, and ultimately, for a lot of reasons, I moved up to San Francisco, and there were a bunch of people at the Muppets who worked at ILM previously. They knew George Lucas, and they said, "You've got to get a job at ILM. You just have to do that." And I was like, I know nothing about visual effects. I don't know the first thing about it. And they said, go interview. So I interviewed. I started there as a travel coordinator, and I worked my way up to a producer. I moved back to LA because I was offered several jobs here, and ultimately became the executive producer at Rhythm and Hughes, and I've been there for 6 years.
Great.
Well, probably like a lot of you, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to be an oceanographer, an architect, a marine biologist, and then I remember seeing Star Wars and the lines across the, blocks for ends, the lines going crazy. And when I saw that, I was like, that's what I want to do. Whatever that is, that's what I want to do. I didn't know what that was, but that's what I wanted to do. Then, you had all these different ideas about how do I go about that and stuff. Then I changed my mind. I want to do this, I want to do that. And I ended up actually at UCLA as a history major as well. And not until kind of after I graduated, I got a few jobs. I was an intern at Columbia Pictures with the creative advertising department, and through them I worked with a company that actually made trailers, movie trailers, and TV spots, and so kind of got a sense of the post-production process in a little microcosm. So we kind of had a very high rate of turnover, but it was not only a video finish for TV, but it was also a film finish. So we had film bins and cutting room and all that kind of stuff. Then I got an opportunity to work at DD, and I was like, oh my God, this was in '94.
That's Digital Domain.
Digital Domain opened in '93.
Mm-hmm.
This is right after True Lies came out. And I said, oh God, I'll do anything. So, and I did. I ended up as a technical assistant in the software department doing pretty much I'll do anything, So I was testing software programs. One of the programmers had carpal tunnel syndrome, so I would type for him as he would, talk C++. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm going to take an extension class. I learned some C++, gradually kind of worked my way up through Digital Domain. I've been there now for almost 15 years. Team lead on Titanic, and kind of did all these various things through the years, and that's where I'm at now.
Okay, great. So you've learned something already. You want to get into visual effects, major in history. I definitely know that. So we're kind of trying to build this idea of what it is you need, what skills you need to do this. So know how to be a photographer and a filmmaker, even if it's just in your garage. Another thing, in the magazine, we tend to refer to effects people as effects artists. That's just always what we've called them. How accurate is that, and how much do you need an artist's eye to do this work? Or are there just different elements of it you need to be quite artistic to do? Or can someone like me who can't draw a stick figure, is there a place for someone like that?
Well, I should say, the visual effects business is filled with so many different specialties that are so different from each other. And so the answer to your question is yes and no. I think there are jobs that are less artistic than other jobs. A lot of times, you have matte painters that are fully, traditional painters to whatever you think of as the concept of an artist. That is it right there. And we have modelers who it's like sculpturing. We have riggers who take character and put the bones in it so that it can be animated. We have the animators who actually go and animate it. You have lighters who light it. We have compositors who put it all together. And people who do frame-by-frame rotoscoping. All of these are sort of invaluable parts of the whole process, and each one of those is artistic in its own way, but like I said, some of them are more.
Right.
There's an art to coding. There's people that are really gifted at programming. If you've ever tried it, it's quite artistic. You might think it's kind of dull and boring and there's no composition involved, but it's quite an art to create a program, and the artists that use those programs generally are not artistically inclined, but when you have the combination of both, it becomes very powerful. A friend of ours, Alan Kapler, wrote a volumetric program that he was a master of that art, and he even wrote the program. So it becomes a combination of skills that even can catapult you further. But even the production assistant or production coordinators, they have their own place, and they're very valuable to the production. There's any way of getting into the business.
So, a little switch here. There's a lot of films now, more and more. It seems like every year it's doubled from the year before. A lot of films being shot on HD, digitally. How has that impacted visual effects work, number one? And number two, what do you think the future is for actual film, celluloid? Is that just going to be a thing of the past soon?
Well, a lot of films that we've been working on lately have been shot on the Panavision Genesis camera, which is kind of the first digital camera to really be adopted by major Hollywood films. I think it's safe to say. There's been other cameras like the Viper and things like that, but this is the first one that is actually, to get a little bit technical, has a full 35 millimeter film back, which means you have the same shallow depth of field as everyone is used to on a film camera. You have nearly as much range and color as you would in film, not the same, but you're getting close. And what it has done for us is speed things up tremendously in terms of getting the material online and starting to work on it quickly. It's actually amazing how much sharper the material looks than film. Film has a little bit of a softness to it and a much bigger grain density. So it's those are all kind of technical reasons. On a film set, it must be murderous to assistant editors because we just roll and roll and roll and roll, and there's no reason not to because tape is so cheap that you're able to just get so much more material. And you can argue whether that's good or bad for the craft. I don't know. I guess it depends on what kind of director you have. But those are some of the ways that it's affected us.
Yeah, Fincher on set does not do that. He will actually, because I've been with directors who both just let it roll.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're still rolling. Go do it again. And you lose track. You can't slate.
Yeah.
It becomes, like you said, it's a nightmare for these editors who have to just manage all this, tons and tons of hard drives of data. But Fincher, for example, on set will actually treat it like a film set. Action cut. He'll actually review the takes on set and will actually delete them if he doesn't like them.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
Right there on set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want an embarrassing take on the hard drive. For that one,